Yeah, right, everybody. Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and Man City look like they're going to sign Jérémy Doku, or Kakarot, as I'm going to be calling him. If you know, you know. Now, of course, Riyad Mahrez has departed for Saudi Arabia. This leaves a big glaring hole in this part of Pep Guardiola's squad, and Doku plays there. So everyone's just like, oh, well, he's coming in to be the Mahrez replacement then. But the thing is, I don't actually think he is the Riyad Mahrez replacement. I think he might be coming in to replace De Bruyne. Sort of. Okay, so last season there was a bit of a narrative that Mahrez kind of fell out of this Man City side, that he fell out of favour with Guardiola, that he wasn't a particularly good fit for the system. But as Man City fans will tell you, that's not actually true at all. He was actually in the starting 11 for all of their last 7 Premier League games, contributed 5 goals over that period as well, and finished the season with 15 goals and assists. And that's obviously a fairly major contribution to just allow to leave in the summer without planning to replace it. And yet here we are, ages after he's actually gone, with only a few days left in the transfer window, and it only really seems to be the big injury to Kevin De Bruyne that has spurred Manchester City on to go and spend 60 million on Doku. So what's that about then, you may understandably be asking? And I think it's got everything to do with the system. Right, so he's going to talk about box midfields again, and honestly, if every single time I had mentioned box midfields on this channel, I had put one shiny pound into a jar, some charity would be set to benefit to the tune of £25, maybe? Which is not to be sniffed at. Right, my lovelies, while it is not true to say that Mahrez fell out of this team and didn't have a place in it, when you actually look at City's big games, like the latter stage of the Champions League and the FA Cup final, then there is hide nor hair of Riyad Mahrez. He didn't start in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, the semi-finals of the Champions League, the final of the Champions League, and the final of the FA Cup, and in fact, his only contribution across those entire games was 11 minutes in the semi-final second leg when City were 4-0 up. When it came to the specific plan Pep had devised to win Man City the treble, he did not use Mahrez in it. And that's because Mahrez is not the right kind of player for what they were doing. We've got it set up as a 4-3-3 here, and you know the drill by now. That's not what it was. Rodri was over there. Stones would play across there. They would shift to a back three, and they would use the box midfield. And the role of these two wide players in the box midfield is to hold their width as much as possible to stretch the defence to allow room for Haaland and room for the 2 number 8s. Jack Grealish would always be over that side, getting chalk on his boots, receiving it as close to the byline as he possibly could, and Pep would use Bernardo Silva on this side to do exactly the same thing. Bernardo Silva's main role, as we saw absolutely expertly, was to find pockets of space and use those to kill Real Madrid. This is one of my favourite goals from a tactical standpoint anybody scored last season. He just waits and he waits, sees the gap, ends up in it, through ball is excellent, and that was pretty much the tie-over. That is simply not the kind of goal that Riyad Mahrez would ever score. He got loads of goals for Manchester City, but they all tended to be one of 2 types. Either the Guardiola classic, a low cross that would allow him to make a run from out to in and finish the ball at the back post, or the Arjen Robben special, where he would cut inside on his left foot and blammo it. Not really 2 goals that will exist in this Guardiola system, because of course any crosses going into the box are for Haaland's big head, and if he did cut inside onto his left foot, he's just moving into traffic. Now, of course, as a result of the injuries in the squad, we do not yet know how Guardiola's going to want to set City up this season. We don't really know what their plan A is. Stones hasn't been around for it. De Bruyne is now injured. Gundogan's gone, so it will probably be different to this. But if this is now how he sees the role of wide players, you don't need Riyad Mahrez. So, thus, if they are getting Jérémy Doku in, it's not because of his similarities to Riyad Mahrez, but instead because of his differences. And as best as I can see it, Doku has 2 major differences to Riyad Mahrez. The first one is good in that he prefers his right foot, so he holds his width a lot better. He goes up the byline, he goes round plays, he doesn't try and cut inside and create that problem Mahrez would have created in this system. But the second one is bad in that he has absolutely nowhere near the same kind of end product. Doku, who spent last season in a Rennes side that was putting absolutely everything through him where they could, got 6 goals. Yes, that is 1 more than Mahrez, but he also only got 2 assists. Now, his expected assist was near a 5, so it might be a case if you put him in a team with better players, they'll start taking more of these chances and those numbers will jump up. But given that Mahrez was in and out of the team all season and he still got 10, that's a slight concern. Now, just before I go any further, I will say, having sat and watched loads of videos of Doku this morning, if you are a Man City fan, whether or not this is a good transfer or not, Gonna have a lot of fun. The guy simply makes football an absolute joy to watch. He's got pace for days. His close control's excellent. He loves a trick. He puts people on his arse. Like, end product or not, just... Fuck me, that's great. That's what football's about, not this nerd stuff. Partially as a result of being a far more developed player, but mostly because he plays for Man City, who have the ball more than any other team in the world. It's very difficult to point at a per 90 stat between the two to really illustrate the difference. But oh wait, here's one. Now the actual percentiles here, which is the green bar that shows how it ranks in context, might not look too different here. But you got to remember, this is the difference between the Premier League and Ligue 1. If you look at the actual number, there's a huge difference. Mahrez successfully takes on an opponent about 1.5 times every 90 minutes, whereas Doku is doing it nearly 7 times a game. Likewise, Mahrez successfully carries the ball up the pitch just under 4 times a game, whereas Doku, again, is doing it nearly 7 times. And then if you just sort of like mentally factor in that Man City have about twice as much possession per game as Rennes do, then you can almost double that stat for Doku. And I will just say, as someone who absolutely adored watching Alan St-Maximin, whose take on and carry numbers were through the roof, but got accused of having a lack of end product as well. If you look at how often these take-ons lead to a shot for a teammate, Doku is light years ahead of Mahrez there. Per 90 minutes, he is giving another teammate 1.5 shots as a result of taking on an opponent. Can you imagine being Erling Haaland and reading that stat? You'd have your pants off. But wait a minute, Adam, you said something ridiculous at the start of this video about him not being the Mahrez replacement, about him being the Kevin De Bruyne replacement. And yeah, I do actually, in a roundabout way, think he is. De Bruyne is going to be missing for Man City for the next 3, possibly even 4 months. And in terms of how they create things in the centre of the pitch, especially for Erling Haaland, that is a catastrophic blow. What you've got to remember is they haven't just lost Kevin De Bruyne here, they've also lost Gundogan as well, which means the 2 players who were playing closest to Erling Haaland, laying on the most chances for him, are now not in this team. And in my opinion, the reason Man City haven't been breaking their necks trying to replace Mahrez this summer is because, well, Bernardo Silva is clearly plan A in that position when they've got a really big game on. And as we just saw in the Newcastle game, when they're trying to do something a little bit different, they quite like playing Foden out here as well. And that's fine because they've been playing this 4-2-3-1 with sort of Alvarez in the 10 and Kovacic there and deep. But if, when John Stones comes back to fitness, they want to do that box midfield that brought them so much success last season, that's going to be a pretty big problem. Because the thing about Alvarez, as good as he is, he's not really an ideal sort of advanced 8 in this system to be getting in the spaces and laying on chances. The 2 players City have available to them that you would most want in these roles are Foden and Bernardo Silva. And you can't have them there if one of them is having to play wide on the right. So the reason you go out and get Jérémy Doku isn't to replace Mahrez, it's to allow Silva and Foden to play in the middle. And therefore, yeah, you're with me now, the reason Doku is replacing De Bruyne is because it's actually these 2 who are replacing De Bruyne, but he is replacing those 2 over here. So I did say it was in a roundabout way, but you get what I mean. So yeah, anyway, bottom line, we don't really know what Pep Guardiola's idealized Manchester City team is this season, but if he is going out to get Jérémy Doku, it is not because he is like Riyad Mahrez, it is because he is not like Riyad Mahrez. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? So if you're a Manchester City fan, please let me know in the comments how you think you're going to use Jérémy Doku. Have I got that bang on? Have I got that way off? All comments and opinions completely welcome. And if you're not a Man City fan, please let me know what your favourite kind of cheese is. I know it's like a really cliched question to ask on the internet, but I have to go do a big shop later, and I could do with some inspiration, so down there. In the meantime, though, if you have enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. The more subscribers we get, the bigger videos we do, and we have got something absolutely enormous coming very soon that I really want to tell you about, but I'm not allowed to yet. And just if we get more subs, we can do more things like that. So please, it helps a lot, genuinely. Thank you. Get me on Twitter at Adam Cleary, CLERY. 442 socials are in the corner of the video the entire time. Why would I tell you about them now? But until next time, that's Jérémy Doku. I've been Adam Cleary. This is 442. Goodbye. Goodbye.